This will be sword form 3. I'm going to go through it slow. I'm going to introduce you to some of the techniques that if you haven't done black belt club. All right, so we're going to start in the attention position. Now, we're going to start with the sword. This rounded edge here is the sharp edge of the sword, and the flat edge down here is the top of the sword. So when we have it in our scabbard, which is just going to be our hand, what we're going to do is have it upside down so the sharp edge is up. We're going to have it right here on our hip, right there. Now, for the children, your hand might not be big enough to get around for that sword and to be able to draw it out easily like this. So the kids might have to open their hand a little bit like this to draw it. But what you want to do is have your thumb right there on your belt, and that's where you're going to keep that thumb so your scabbard stays on your belt. When you draw the sword, you cannot open your hand and just pull it out. You have to draw the sword all the way out, and then you grip the sword. So first move is going to be called a draw cut. So we're going to start here. To start to draw the sword out of the scabbard, you're going to bend your wrist. Reach in sideways so you grab the top of the handle, and when you grab the top of the handle, you're going to be about 1 finger width away from the slide. So bend the wrist, reach in, we're going to do a draw cut. So all we're going to do is draw the sword out and cut straight out in front of you. Again, bend the wrist, don't step or anything, but it's a draw cut, like that. Next move is going to be an overhead strike. You step forward with your right foot, grab with your left, bring your hands up to about your forehead. So you're going to be like this. Step with your right foot into modified front stance, strike down, so your hands come to belt high, and then you're going to pull with your left hand, push with your right, just a little snap at the end, but don't snap and come back, it's there. So the overhead strike, step, strike. And the tip of the sword is going to be about chest high. Start at the beginning. All right. Draw, cut, overhead strike. Now we're going to turn to our back and do a high block. So high block is just the same as you do it in your sword forms. Pull with the handle, turn, and above your head, blocking with the sword, keeping your hands off to the side, and angle the sword downward so when the sword strikes, keep it flat. Right, so I'm going to show you what that looks like facing the front. So when I come around after the overhead strike, I'm going to turn, block, and then a downward diagonal strike to the right. So from the sword, from the high block, you're just going to keep your hands over here, bring the sword around, and slice and strike down from left to right. Then you're going to do a blood wipe. So you step back. A blood wipe is to get the blood off the sword from your strike. So it's going to be stepping back with your left foot, bring the sword out to your left. Put your hand there for the scabbard. All you're going to do is whip this sword across in front of you and snap it at the end, but you're going to end up with your hand right here with your other hand and the top of the sword blade right here between your forefinger and your thumb. Drawing the sword along your hand there to wipe the blood off the top of the sword, and then sliding the sword in, making sure that the cutting edge is up. And that's a blood wipe. So again, so I'll do the high block as you turn, downward diagonal to the right, step back, blood wipe, and return to scabbard. Right? So when we do that, we turn this way. So now we'll turn to our right and do a downward diagonal strike to the left. Downward diagonal strike to the left will be draw, bring the hand over and off to the right, and downward towards your left. So when we do that, we're going to draw, step with our left foot, grab up here, strike down, and we're always going to strike down toward our back leg. We don't want our back leg in front because it gets in the way, it could be cut. It's always downward diagonal along your foot line, downward diagonal, Then you're going to turn the sword, load the strike up just a little bit, step, and upward diagonal to the right, and then we're going to do a straight thrust. So again, we'll do that starting from here, and the one way. So it'll be step with your right foot, bring it over your head, downward diagonal, step, upward diagonal, and a thrust. I'll show you what that looks like from the front. So we're here. We're going to turn to our right, which will be that way, but I'm going to do it this way. Draw, downward diagonal, upward diagonal, and a thrust. All right, so we're here. So we did the thrust. Now we're going to step forward with your right foot and turn back to your left. High block and downward diagonal strike to your right. And we'll step back and do a blood wedge. We're going to move here. Right. Next move, going back the original direction you were facing, you're going to draw the sword. And again, we're going to be here at about belt high, and the sword on about maybe a 30-degree angle. Tip of the sword is going to be about chest high. From here, bring the sword back to your left hip. It'll be like this. We're going to do a horizontal strike to the right. Stepping with your left foot. Strike across to there. Stepping back, we're going to do upward diagonal to your left. Upward strike. Back to guard. Now, when you come back to guard, you want to bring your feet up. So, from there, we're going to do another horizontal strike to the right, stepping back with your right foot. Then we're going to do overhead strikes. So we're going to come here, raise the hands about forehead high, step forward and diagonally with your right foot, and do an overhead strike. And then step back just a little bit to your right with your right foot, and do a horizontal strike about neck high. Then you're going to step forward, do a blood wipe. All right, so I'm going to move from that point. We're going to do a set. So we're going to step forward with your right foot, do an overhead strike, upward diagonal to the right, downward diagonal to the left. Horizontal strike as you step back with your right foot to the right, then a horizontal up, and a horizontal down. Chamber for a horizontal strike on your right, step back with your left, strike, come back to guard, and step forward with your left foot, blood wipe, and we're done. Okay, I'll do it again a little bit faster this time, not as much narration and instruction. So start at the attention position, bend the wrist, go in, draw a cut. Step out with your right foot, overhead strike. Turn to your rear, high block down to the right, and a downward diagonal strike to the right. Step back and blood wipe. Turning to your right, draw, step with your right foot, downward diagonal strike to the left, step, upward diagonal strike to the right, straight thrust. Stepping forward with your right foot, turn, overhead block downward to the right, downward diagonal strike to the left, step back, blood wipe. I'm going to move. All right, so turning to your left, draw and go to a on guard position. Stepping with your left foot forward, horizontal strike to your right, step back, upward diagonal strike to your left, come back to guard. Horizontal strike to your right again, step back with your right foot, step out to your right diagonally, overhead strike, step back slightly with your right foot, horizontal strike to your right, step forward, blood wipe. Move again. All right, from here, we're going to step forward with the right foot, overhead strike, upward strike, diagonal strike to the right, downward to the left. Horizontal strike to your right as you step back with your right foot, or diagonal up to your left, diagonal down to your right, Step back, horizontal strike to your left. Come back to guard, move the foot slightly. Step forward with the left foot, blood wipe, and bow.